So today I will be talking about yield farming leveling up. So we saw a big craze with yield farming, and a lot of that yield farming was happening on projects that didn't have a lot of fundamental value. And so it's kind of like a race to zero because there's no fundamental value behind the tokens that were being yield farmed. And now we're seeing kind of the market adjust to this and understand this. And so there might be a pickup around tokens that do have fundamental value, but I'm here to discuss something that is beyond that and how you can earn GRT on the graph through indexing, curating, and delegating. So before I dive in, I will explain what the graph does. So the graph is an indexing and query protocol that's powering many of the applications on DeFi and then the broader Web3 ecosystem today. And so you can kind of think of it like this open API that makes it easy for Web2 developers to build on blockchains. And I like to use the analogy like what Google does for search, we're doing for blockchains. But because we have a token and the data is all open, there's no monetization of the data or anything like that. And we're making it easy for developers to access blockchain data and then serve that data to their users. And so we've kind of become the backbone of DeFi and the broader Web3 space today. And we are decentralizing our network in the next few months. And so we're really looking forward to inviting everyone in the community to kind of become and be a part of the graph network. So we've become a default part of the stack. So just so that you can visualize where the graph sits, at the bottom of this chart, you would have the blockchain. And then on top of that, you have the smart contracts. And then you have what we call subgraphs, which are open APIs in the graph network. And then on top of that, the developers build these subgraphs. And then on top of those subgraphs, you have the UX and the UI. So we abstract all the indexing layer away. This is why developers really love working with the graph because we save them about 12 months line of code. And they can then focus on making their applications really usable and beautiful to their users. And so we are powering DeFi. So these are some of the many applications that use us. So over 3,000 subgraphs have actually been created by applications like Aave, Aragon, Bandcore, Band Protocol, Gnosis, Numerai, many others. Anytime you use the Uniswap exchange, you're actually interacting with a graph subgraph. It's how Uniswap pulls data from Ethereum and then serves that data to you, the user. And so our subgraphs have been growing at about 25% month over month, as well as our developers. And we're also seeing query growth growing at over 55% month over month. So in August, we hit 4 billion queries. And then last month, we actually hit 7.2 billion queries over the course of the month. And this just shows like how much additional development and usage of Ethereum, because the graph is built on Ethereum and IPFS, but most of this data is from Ethereum. So it just shows how the exponential growth or the parabolic growth of Ethereum that we've seen. And so this is a breakdown of those queries. So we are seeing a large percentage of that that has happened in the DeFi space. About 88% of the query volume is happening in DeFi, but I would say that only makes up about half of the subgraphs. But we're also seeing growth in other areas, so like art and collectibles, so NFT gaming's growing, and then also inter blockchain. So what we're seeing is like wrapped BTC and things like this, and also bridges to other blockchains. That area is really growing. So these are the roles in the graph network that anyone can become. So you have the indexer, which is the node operator. And you do need to be relatively technical to be an indexer because you have to kind of spit up this software and serve it to your users and serve those nodes. And then curation is not that technical. So anyone could be a curator in the graph network. You just need to find what I like to call the open data alpha, and I'll get more into that in a moment. And then there's also delegation. So if you're not technical, but you still want to participate in the graph network, what you can do is you can delegate your tokens to the indexers that are running that node infrastructure. And then you have the consumers, which are consuming the queries and the data on the other end of that spectrum, or we're seeing applications take on those costs for their users. So indexing, these are, like I said, the node operators in the graph network. So they stake graph tokens, which is called GRT, on subgraphs. And subgraphs, like I said, are those open APIs created by developers for different applications. And they do this to provide indexing and query services. And so those indexers earn a large fee from the network for providing this service. So the graph is a work token model. Again, this is kind of for the more advanced technical folks. So curation. So curators are subgraph developers or really anyone in the ecosystem that they signal which subgraphs the indexer should stake on. So for example, if you see that I spin up a Uniswap subgraph and then Hayden or Ashley spin up a Uniswap subgraph, you would, as a curator, signal that their Hayden or Ashley's subgraph is better than my subgraph because I'm not with the Uniswap team. And so creating a subgraph is completely permissionless. Anyone can do it for anything. And that's why we need the curators to help the indexers identify which subgraph is the good subgraph. And this happens on a bonding curve. So the sooner you signal, the more you earn as a curator. But what you could also imagine is seeing a lot of new DeFi subgraphs spin up. And so if you see this cool new DeFi subgraph, you can then stake on that. You can then signal to the indexers that that is a new great subgraph. And then if that subgraph develops into something great, you're going to earn more and more for that because it is on the bonding curve. You identified it early, and then everyone else kind of piled on after you because you signaled first. And then delegation. So this is just for anyone who wants to contribute in the ecosystem. You can delegate to the indexers, whichever indexer you choose to. And then you would get a split of the query fees, the GRT and the graph network. And so we're imagining that right now our testnet is live. So actually you can register to be a curator on our testnet. And we're actually providing up to 3% of our total GRT to our curators that help us in the testnet and then that sign up to be launch partners. So you can earn between $500 of GRT to $50,000 of GRT depending on how much you contribute to the ecosystem. And so I'll share that link so that you can all register for that and get those rewards. And then the opposite side of the ecosystem is the folks that are going to pay GRT. So when the Graph decentralized network goes live, you will then need to pay for the queries that you use. And we imagine that these costs being similar or less than the gas costs on Ethereum. And what we are in discussions with a lot of the applications is to actually take on those costs for their users or for the ones that do have business models to kind of bake that into the business model so it's abstracted away from the users. And so that is what I have for this presentation. I'm happy to take any questions from the floor. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So I got a question, how long have I been in crypto? So my journey started, I was actually in what we call centralized finance now. So I was at Bank of America in investment banking. And then I was at Barclays on the sales and trading floor. I was there for about 3 years. And then I learned about Ethereum 4 years ago. So I learned about Bitcoin in 2011. And was kind of skeptical, tried to buy it. It was really difficult to buy at that time and then put it out of my mind. And then I learned about Ethereum about 4 years ago, really saw the opportunity to disrupt finance and kind of redistribute resources. And so found my passion within the blockchain space. I joined Orchid, which is a distributed VPN backed by Andreessen Horowitz and Sequoia. I helped them launch. And then post that launch, I really felt like a lot of the things that we were seeing in the ecosystem were difficult to use and weren't kind of comparable to the centralized applications that we see. And so I took a step back and I turned down 32 offers. I joined the Graph full time because I think that the Graph is really like that missing layer that's allowing these applications to actually be better than centralized applications. And so, yes, I've been in crypto for 4 years. So I've been in San Francisco for about the same time. I was promoted from Barclays in New York to Barclays in San Francisco and learned about Ethereum within like the first week that I was in the Bay Area. And then I got another question about what advice do I give young women out there who think blockchains and cryptocurrencies are scams. So in 2017, we saw a lot of scams, and I think that this really hurt the space. But this comes with any new technological advancement. So you're going to see a lot of capital flow in. There's this like FOMO that happens within a lot of folks that they just want to get in and they don't have time to do the due diligence because everyone's earning money so quickly. And so this comes with any technological advancement. You look at the dot-com bubble, it's a similar story. And a lot of those companies are no longer there anymore. But now we have the internet from the dot-com bubble. And I think the same thing with the blockchain space. You have to be really careful. I would say like 90% of what we saw in 2017, maybe more, was a scam. But that 10% that wasn't a scam is really building really important things. And I personally believe that blockchain is the future of the internet. And so I'm really excited to kind of help us get there. But sometimes you have people that are short-term minded that come in, and it's unfortunate, but it's kind of part of the, I guess, uptick or the learning curve into the crypto space. So my advice is to really just do your due diligence, understand, who's using what you're investing in or what you're supporting, the projects you're supporting, and is there fundamental value there? If not, I would stay away from it. Then another question is, your presentation seems so technical. Can it be simplified in a more simple manner to allow a moderate person to easily understand it? Sure. So the graph, I guess with the analogy, like the graph is similar to what Google does for search, we're doing for blockchains. So we make it easy so blockchains weren't really created for folks to be able to get the data from those blockchains. So you have a bunch of great data, but it's not in a way that's digestible to the user. And this is kind of why the narrative that there are no users in Ethereum came, because a lot of these applications were not usable. And now with the graph abstracts this indexing layer away. And when I say indexing, you can think of like this database. So this open database layer on top of blockchains right now, on top of Ethereum. And then you can easily query that data. And so when I say query, you can think of search. So you're able to find, like, if I want to see how many trades happened between March and April at over 100K each, without the graph, it's really difficult to pull that data from Ethereum in a quick and efficient way. And so using the graph, you're able to pull that data really easily and seamlessly. The same, you'll go into Google and like search for something. But without Google, the internet is so expansive, you're not able to easily search that. So hopefully that kind of helps you understand it. And then when we go to the peer-to-peer ecosystem, because the graph is decentralized, we're not here to we're not here to be a toll collector or a middleman in a community that's removing the middlemen. And so everything in the graph network, once we move to the decentralized network, will be peer-to-peer. So all of those fees that go to the queries from the applications or the users will then be redistributed to the indexers that are providing the node service, or the curators that are providing that open data alpha, as well as the delegators, who are folks that are not technical or that have no knowledge of data that still want to participate in the graph network. So another question is, what programming language can the graph be used with? So the graph is actually uses GraphQL. And GraphQL was a language that was created by Facebook. So it's used predominantly within Web 2. And so it's used by all the traditional tech companies that we know and love in the Web 2 space. But because we're using GraphQL, it makes it really easy for these Web 2 developers to build on blockchains because they're familiar with this language. And so we're actually seeing a lot of developers from the Web 2 space flood into the Web 3 space, which is the decentralized ecosystem that we're all building in the blockchain space when I say Web 3. And we're seeing a lot of folks move into the blockchain space because it's now, for the first time, so easy to build in this ecosystem and to build applications on Ethereum. So hopefully that answers everyone's questions. Thank you so much for tuning into this panel. I dropped the links to the graph so you can join our Telegram, you can join our Discord, get engaged in the community, and I will also share the link for the curation program, but it is found on our blog, thegraph.com, and then under blogs, you'll see the curation program. There's a form that you can register there. Thank you so much.